Alright, welcome back and thanks for tuning in again. So today, I'm going to take a look at this 1945 Onan W2S. This is a 2000 watt, 120 volt generator, and I picked this thing up, well, probably 3 or 4 months ago now. It was listed on Facebook Marketplace, and the thing that really attracted me to it was just how complete and original it is, and the excellent condition of the paint and the decals. So I really think this was a good find, and today I want to get it running, run it under the load bank, and see what kind of life it has left in it. I have no idea how many hours are on it. Judging by its overall condition, I'm going to say not many. It was used on it was a dairy farm originally. I think this was used in like the milk house or something like that. Probably ran just lighting, things like that. So yeah, let's take a walk around it. Hey, now I did make a video of actually going to pick this gen set up, and we did already do a walk around, but we'll take another look at it just for this video. It's in very nice shape, in my opinion. One of the nicest I've ever seen for its age. So we got the stop and start switches there. Here's a picture of the data plate. 2000 watts, 115 volts. Here's a little bit of information about the DC output. So it was sold by Fairbanks Morse, but it was actually built by Onan. Onan did that from time to time. You'll find these with DW Onan and Sons tag on them, not mentioning Fairbanks. But the thing was completely built by Onan. Fuel pump, oil pressure gauge. Yeah, everything is in really nice shape. Everything moves, nothing's stuck. I mean, the paint isn't perfect, of course, but it's in really nice shape overall. Radiator seems to be good. It's got coolant in it, so don't see any leaks. Now, I've already went ahead and drained the oil out of this thing, and I wanted to show you. We're definitely going to have to pull the sump or the oil pan off of this thing, just because there's a lot of thick, sludgy stuff in this pan. Grab a screwdriver here, and you can feel it, and you can just scrape it out of there. Like, comes out in chunks almost. So you see that? Now, the oil doesn't smell bad, doesn't smell like gasoline, doesn't look like it's got any water in it. This just looks like the normal sludge you'd get from old 1940s motor oil in a gasoline engine. You know, gasoline engines are really hard on engine oils. You get a lot of acids built up in there. I mean, the oil just smells waxy. So I think that's really going to be step one. Is I'll get the forklift out. We're gonna take 6 bolts off, 1, 2, 3, and then 3 on the other side. I'll put some slings around the generator, maybe one under the this big casting here that supports the radiator, and one under the generator end. Take the bolts out, and we'll just lift the gen set right off of the sump. We'll get a look inside there, scrape all that gunk out, flush it out, and we'll get a look up at the crankcase of the generator as well. We'll probably take the oil pump off, make sure any check valves, check balls. I don't know if this is a plunger type pump in this, or if it's a gear type pump. So well, I guess we'll find out. So let me go bring the forklift around and we'll get started. Alright, well, I brought the forklift in. Got some straps around it. Take up some slack. I imagine it should come off pretty easy. Pretty easy. So now that we got the engine separated from the base, oh, I didn't even think about that being a problem. Can't get my strap out now. Guess it's not really a problem. Set the base back on the bench here. Wow, that's pretty incredible. Come take a look at this. Wow. Boy, that sludge, that's as bad as the sludge that was in the old cat gen set. Look at this. That's crazy. What is this? Just sludge. Big wafers of sludge. I've never seen that before. Big wafers of sludge. This is actually kind of concerning now. Now I wonder if this thing even had any oil pressure the last time it ran. Let's get a look in the crankcase there. Where's the light? There it is. There's the oil pickup. Wow. Just a big sludge blob there. So there's the pickup. It looks like it must be a gear type pump hiding right there, I would imagine. Zoom in on that. Okay. Looks like 2 bolts. One up in the top corner, one in the bottom corner. Must be driven off of the timing gear set up front. I would imagine the pump gears are back here under that cover, so I should be able to pull that off, take that little inverted flare thing off, pull that off. Wow. This is going to be a bit more of a project than I had anticipated, just because I'm going to have to clean this crankcase out now. Ugh. A little discouraging, but what do you expect? Let's see, we're looking at the camshaft there. You can see we're looking at the bottom of the crankshaft there, so both of these pistons are at top dead center at the same time. Of course, one would be on top dead center compression, one would be at the overlap point between exhaust and intake. So you see the counterweights there. Bit difficult to film up in there. Well, definitely needed to pull that pan off. That's why you always pull the oil pan. You never just assume that you can flush this stuff out, you know, drain the oil and run some gasoline or something through the pan. There's some kerosene, because no amount of flushing was going to clear this stuff out. It almost looks like rust, like maybe there was some moisture in this pan at some point, but my gosh, look at that. That's horrible. Okay, well, I guess I got to get to cleaning. Alright, so I just dropped the oil pump, or the oil pump housing, and here's a better look at the pickup. I would call that 95% blocked. That's pretty severe. So let me move that out of the way. Set that over there. And take a look. There's the drive gears, or the pump gears. Don't know yet. Set you down here. Am I going to be able to pull these off of here? That one is probably the drive gear. That'll be the driven gear. So that'd be the idler gear right there. The actual driving gear on that shaft, I don't think I'm going to be able to pull that without first removing the gear from the timing, under the timing cover. So the other side of that shaft, on the other side of this casting, probably has the gear that is actually driving this shaft, which is being driven off probably the crank gear, I would imagine. So that's just going to have to stay there. It looks fairly clean though. I didn't really take a look at that idler gear. Focus on that, would you? That actually looks pretty nice, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah, it actually does look pretty nice. Okay. Well, where's that line at? I'll take that line out. I just moved it out of the way. I'll reach up in there and find it. There it is. Look at all the crust on that. Let me zoom you back out. So these will get flushed out, and I'll be able to pump some fresh oil up into the main bearings. I don't know if this crankshaft is drilled to lubricate the rods or not. I'll have to pull out the manual and investigate that. Well, let me get this cleaned up and we'll come back when we're ready to reassemble. Well, would you believe it's a week later now? So I've got the oil pan cleaned out. The gasket surface is pretty well cleaned. That came out nice. Got the oil pump body cleaned out. That wasn't all that bad. No pitting, no rust inside. That's a big plus. Pickup screen is cleaned out. Oil lines have been flushed and cleaned. The other pump gear was pretty clean when it came out. No real issues there. Hardware, and I did take out the cam followers to clean those and to get me better access. So even though I didn't want to, I ended up pulling the cam cover off and the fuel pump and the cover that held the oil dipstick just to grant me better access to the interior of the crankcase, which cleaned up pretty well. I don't know if I'm sure that's casting some shadows there, but it's actually pretty clean in there. Rinsed it out with some kerosene and a little toothbrush, scrub brush. Up in this area, up at the top of the crankcase, wasn't all that sludgy, to be honest with you. You can kind of see the ends of the valve tappets right there, or the valve stems, I should say. Cam. Take a peek through here. There's the other oil pump gear. Might as well just put the whole camera in there at this point. Let's see. So much better than it was, I would say. Still not immaculate, but by comparison, much cleaner and in good shape to run. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and reinstall those cam followers, adjust the valves, and I can put the valve cover back on, valve chest cover. And what else we got to do? Oh, we'll put the oil pump back in. All right, let me get started. Okay, so we're going to follow the instructions in the service manual for adjusting the valves. First, let's zoom in here. We've got to get the engine at the engine's crankshaft to the proper position. So you see we got a line here stamped in the block right here and the letters TC. We also have a line stamped on the flywheel with the same letters. So we've got to get those lines lined up. Kind of hard to see. From your angle, it might look like I went past it, but the casting really obscures the line on the flywheel, so you kind of have to just visualize, oops, sorry about that, this line over top of that line. So number one cylinder, or number one piston, should be at top dead center on its compression stroke. We should have both cam lobes down or out of the way. So we got one lobe kind of pointing down and toward us. The other lobe should be pointing down and away from us in that direction. So we know we're at top dead center on number one. We can go ahead and install the cam followers. I don't know if turning this light on is going to help. So the valve pattern on this engine is intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake. So we got the number one intake cam follower. Set that in there. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. It's not too dark. we have to get it bolted onto these little cast iron rockers or pivots. It's fighting me already. There we go. Get that bolt started. It's a pretty long bolt for what it's doing. Okay. So you can see that elongated hole here is your adjustment. So picture my finger here as the pivot shaft. As we draw the cam follower in, or out, I should say, out toward us, we are increasing the width of the cam follower between the valve stem and the cam lobe. So that's how we tighten the clearance and loosen the clearance. Speaking of clearance, the range is 8 to 10 thousandths for the intake. So we're going to shoot for 9. I'm going to pull the, well, first got to get the feeler gauge. Got the 9 thousandths gauge here. Set that in between the cam and the cam follower. And I'm going to put a little bit of tension on the cam follower back toward us with the screwdriver, just enough to hold that back firmly and tighten down that bolt. It's not cranked down too tight. So I got some drag there with the 9 thousandths gauge. So let's take a 10 thousandths gauge and a light so I can see what I'm doing. I can force it in there, but it's pretty tight. So that's too tight actually. So I'd say we got that one right. The 9 thousandths passes through with a little bit of drag. So let me go give that bolt final little torque, about 5 mic pounds, and make sure we still got 9 thousandths of clearance. Yep. So there is one intake. Guess we'll keep the camera rolling and go ahead and do the exhaust on this side on number 1 cylinder. Come on. There we go. Okay, and the spec for these, the exhaust, is 10 to 12 thousandths, so we'll shoot for 11. And 11 thousandths gauge right here. Oop. These are kind of fiddly things to set. All right, so 10,000 or 11 thousandths gauge is in there. You swing it off to the side a little bit and do the same thing. Just take a screwdriver and put a little bit of tension pulling that cam follower out. Just snug it. And I think we made it too tight there. Yeah, too tight. Okay. 11 thousandths passes through there with a little bit of drag. Let's try a 12. Get my light back in here. And 12 thousandths is a little loose. Could be a little tighter. Let's put the 11 back in. Okay. A little bit of drag there. 12 thousandths will just get stuck. So I would say we're there on our 11 thousandths mark. Might be a little tight on 11, but it's all right. Snug it up and check it one more time. No problem. Okay, so number 1 is done. I'm going to go ahead and take care of number 2 and put the cover back on. Right, so next I'm going to install the oil pump, or the housing for the oil pump. So got the pump. I left the original gasket on there. I know it looks rough, but it's actually pretty in pretty decent shape. There's some oil dropping on me there. And I've packed a little bit of red grease around the pump drive gear here and a little bit on the gear up there, just to help the oil pump suck up a prime of oil as quick as possible. So unfortunately there's no easy way for me to film this while I'm doing it, so I'll be back in a sec once it's done. Well, the weekend's coming to a close, so here's what we got done. Oil pump is on. The discharge line is on. Gonna have to spin the screen around here so I can see what I'm looking at. Got the right up here. That's the oil over the pressure relief valve. That's on. All the lines, everything. The valve chest covers back on. Cleaned the points, adjusted them, and put a new condenser in it. The oil pressure gauge is back on, and then the lower plate here. The fuel pump is where my holdup is now. Here's the diaphragm out of it. It's about as hard as a rock and brittle. So that would not have worked at all. But rebuild kit is on its way. So when we come back in just a second for you guys, we'll go ahead and rebuild the fuel pump, reinstall it, and then we'll drop the whole unit back on its oil pan. Stay tuned.